farmhouse brewery. Farmhouse breweries traditionally used what they had on hand to brew beer. So on our end, we're sort of doing the same thing where, say, the chef in the local pub has these really great ingredients that he's using on the menu there. If we can get 10 pounds of it, then we can brew a little batch of something kind of interesting with a strange ingredient and see what happens with it in beer. You know, your local restaurant now has beef that was maybe raised right down the street, or greens that were grown right down the road. So I think it's just a natural progression that because real people make real beer these days, it's not just made in a big factory in the middle of the country. It's just a natural progression for craft breweries, I think, to do the same thing where you have relationships with local farmers and local hop growers and that kind of thing. And it's an interesting story for people to grasp onto, I think, when they sit down and drink a pint of beer, just to find out what's gone into that pint of beer. It makes perfect sense, I think. I think the whole movement for the last few years has gotten a lot more local. It doesn't make sense to ship a bottle of beer from California to North Carolina, because by the time it gets here, it's a week old, or however many days it takes to make that trip. So I think a lot of these bigger guys are looking for local distribution chains, which makes a lot of sense. But I think in general, I think North Carolina is just really receptive to the craft beer movement. Again, we're sort of geographically in the middle where you can still grow hops locally, and we have micro maltsters in North Carolina, and the environment, I think, is just really friendly for a lot of small craft breweries, and again, second locations for the larger craft breweries. So I think it's just a natural fit. I think beer drinkers have gotten a lot more exploratory. That's the word. Yeah, exploratory the last few years, where they're looking for newer or more creative takes on your regular styles. I think people still appreciate straight to style beers, but they're also looking for new and exciting things to do with beer. And again, if it introduces people to the fact that there are some beers out there that you actually do age in real bourbon barrels versus adding some sort of bourbon flavoring, then again, it starts to introduce that language to people who wouldn't normally hunt down a bourbon barrel aged beer, because they don't speak that language. So when they go and they see a Super Bowl commercial for this new beer and it brings it into the mainstream, I don't see that as a bad thing. Is the fact that the craft brewing community, especially the local on a state level, is the absolute friendliest, non-competitive. Obviously we're all in business. Technically we're all sort of competing, but it's not competitive at all. It's the most collaborative industry that I've ever seen. It really is refreshing and nice, and I think it comes across to our customers too. I think that's part of the reason that everybody likes to be involved with some of these smaller breweries, because it's a fun way to work with your other local breweries and all come together to do something really fun, and I think that comes out in that pint of beer. So.
All right, well that's